My ex-wife and I parted shortly after the birth of my 9-year-old daughter. We also have a 12-year-old son together. It wasn't a messy breakup in the slightest, she just fell out of love, and we still maintain an incredible friendship today. Co-parenting with her is easy, we have 50-50 custody, no courts involved, they spend a week with me and then a week with her, we live close by anyway and they love the arrangement. My ex-wife and I both agreed on the way we would raise and punish our children should they misbehave. That way the structure stays consistent and we don't have one parent favored over the other. I've been dating a girl for around 7 years now and she's always been amazing to my children. Last December we got married and things were fine up until now. Last week my daughter stole 2 pockets full of chocolate from a little corner store, whereas my ex and I would have marched her into the store, return the chocolate to the owner and apologize. My new wife took my children home, sat my daughter at the table and forced her to eat the entire lot by herself, making her brother watch. She continued to make my daughter eat even after she'd complained of a bellyache. My son told me when I got home from work. I immediately confronted my wife, telling her that my ex and I both had a system in which to discipline our kids and that she has absolutely no choice in that if she's to punish the children she goes by our agreed upon methods. It keeps everything consistent and I didn't appreciate her making my daughter feel sick. She slept all night and skipped dinner because of her stomach. My wife is extremely upset and says I can't expect her to be married to me and not have a say in how they are raised. I again repeated that how they are raised is up to me and my ex and she should respect and follow those methods. I got the silent treatment for a few days before she said she just couldn't handle the sight of me anymore and went to stay with her mother. Of course her mother is now calling me an awe and saying that I'm treating her as an unequal parental figure in the house and that she should have a say in how the kids are raised as well considering she's the stepmom. I spoke to my ex about it and she agrees with my stance and thanked me for standing up for our choices and defending our agreement. Next story. I, 25F, have 4 older siblings. Seeing my parents regret having kids and struggle financially and physically, I realized at a young age I didn't want children. I love kids and spoiling my nieces and nephews is what keeps me alive, but I've never wanted any on my own. I worked my whole life set on the one career, so why would I give it up for 18 years of regret? My husband doesn't want kids either but too loves our nieces and nephews. Well, my Mill is a strong believer of man being the breadwinner and woman being a stay-at-home mother and housewife. She's very old-fashioned and so is my husband's sister. My Mill doesn't have any respect for me after finding out that I will not be having kids. Every time I see her she makes comments like, "At your age I already had .. or, "What are you even doing with your life with no kids?" It pisses me off, but my husband says to just ignore and we only have to see her at family events. Now here comes the bad part. My Phil never wanted kids. But Mill baby trapped him and when my husband was 10 they divorced. Mill was depressed for a very long time and is still in love with him. The other day me and my husband were invited to a small family get-together and of course we went. Everything went well and I was having fun. I picked up my husband's cousins who is only 6 and started playing with her. Mill took notice of this and walked over to me and said, "See, isn't that easy? Now you just have to have your own kids and do this. I mean, what else could you possibly be doing in your life? Stop slacking off." This pissed me off. In the moment I just said, "Oh, I don't want kids." Hey, kinda like, Phil name. Who knows? Maybe my marriage will work out unlike yours because you're too selfish to take others' feelings and wants into account. Mill stood there absolutely dumbfounded before bursting into tears. Everyone immediately rushed over and when Mill told them, some laughed and some were mad. I felt so awful I wished I had never said it. My husband dragged me to the car and said that although she had it coming I could have found something else to say instead of absolutely tearing into her like that. I've received a few messages saying the same thing but most calling me a fucked up asshole. Next story. I, F31, have been with my husband, M31, for 10 years. We've lived together for most of that time, and have a child and a dog together. This particular issue started a few months ago when he bought a new truck. The night before he had to pick it up, tilde a 1-hour drive, I asked him to take the dog out to go to the bathroom. He refused, saying the dog is mine and therefore my responsibility, not his. Technically the dog is an ESA for me, and when we got her we agreed that I would do the majority of the care for her. This has held true, and this was the first time in over 2 weeks I had asked him to do any of the caretaking for her. I told him that if he couldn't do something as simple as take the dog out to go potty, for me, I wouldn't be spending my day off driving him up to get his truck. The next morning he asked me to drive him, and I told him no, reminding him of our argument the night before. He ended up Ubering there, which cost $100 plus. A few weeks ago, I asked for his help picking up a mattress as my vehicle is a small car. He refused, unless I contribute $70 a month towards his truck payment. His reasoning was that A, since I'm benefiting from the truck I should be helping to pay for it, and B, I didn't drive him to pick up the truck so he doesn't want to use it to help me. We had a pretty big fight about this, and I argued that as his wife I should have access to his resources, obviously within reason, without having to contribute to that specific resource financially. I eventually apologized for not taking him to pick up the truck, and he agreed that he would help me with things like this in the future. A few days later he helped me deliver a desk I was selling about 5 minutes away. After the fact, he asked for half of the money I had earned from selling the desk. I refused, because I feel that his truck is a shared resource and he's my husband, not a contracted delivery driver. He seemed annoyed by this but didn't push it. Today, I asked for his help picking up a pull-out couch for our guest room. He said no. When I asked him why, he said, "Because I don't like to help you." He then further explained, "You won't pay for part of the truck payment and you didn't give me some of the money from your desk, so I don't really want to use my truck to help you." I just said, "Okay," and walked away. I'm really confused and unsure here. I mean, obviously I feel like it's fair that he would use his truck to help me every once in a while, just like I use my resources to help him when I can. To me that's part of being in a committed relationship with someone, and how our relationship has operated up until this ongoing issue with the truck. But aitah for not paying part of the truck payment? For context, he had planned to pay the whole payment himself until he, and I quote, realized I would benefit from it so much, and that seemed unfair to him. Next story. I, 19M, had a job taking care of 2 kids, 2M, 3F, a dog, and doing light housework 4 days a week for a single mom who got my contact info from a business card I had posted in my dad's pediatric therapy office. Ever since the weather started getting warmer, the dog has been shedding like crazy. I would vacuum the couch and the next day it would look like I hadn't. I would lightly tug on the dog's hair and would pull out huge tufts. The dog's been scratching all the time, etc. My dad's dog has a double coat like theirs, and one morning when I was leaving for work I packed his brushing tool in my bag. When the kids were napping, I spent a full hour outside brushing the dog. The dog seemed to enjoy being brushed, and after an hour there was a huge pile of hair that had been brushed out. Before I vacuumed it up, I sent the mom what I thought would be a funny text saying, "Brushed a whole new dog out of dog's coat." Looking back, I realize that maybe I should have asked first, but at the time it seemed like something that was within the scope of caring for the dog. The mom went ballistic. She called me yelling, saying that by brushing the dog and not letting the hair fall out on its own I was causing harm to the dog. She said I was an idiot and she can't believe she trusted me with her kids, and that today was my last day. I was extremely upset because I had been with the family for 3 months and she had never yelled at me like that before. I left as soon as she got home because she was still fuming. I immediately lined up a job with another family and am supposed to start Monday. The mom who yelled at me called me 2 days later saying that she was sorry about the misunderstanding, and that firing me was an overreaction. I told her I was no longer available and she started crying about how hard it was to find a new sitter for special needs kids. Her kids are autistic and have therapy at my dad's office. When I stood firm, she started texting my dad and asking him to do something. My dad is annoyed at being dragged into this, and while he respects my decision he wishes I would keep watching her kids for a short time to keep the peace. I hate that I put anyone in an awkward position, but I also don't want to work for someone like that. Aita? Edit because I don't want to have to keep clarifying. My dad is not an ABA therapist. He's a physical therapist. Next story. My husband Kevin and I got married months ago. Ever since we moved away, his mom started calling more often. She had a mental breakdown when she heard we were moving. She begged we stay near cause she needs him, though her 2 older sons are there. Anyhow, she'd call at random times, then started calling in the middle of the night, specifically at 2 a.m. I thought that was so weird, but she said she wanted to hear Kevin's voice but was too busy to call during the day. Kevin responds to her call every time saying he's worried there might be an emergency. It's exhausting, and completely ruins our alone time. I asked her to call at like 10, but no, she kept calling at 2. Kevin said he can't bring himself to ignore her calls and asked that I be patient. Last night, I decided I wasn't having it. I waited till Kevin was asleep and put his phone on vibrate and waited for her to call. 2 o'clock rolls around and the phone starts vibrating on the nightstand. I stretch my arm to answer and then I start making S and X noises from the bed. I'm talking full on moaning and then some dirty talk, then moaning. Few seconds in and she ends the call. Kevin wakes up and asks if I was alright. I tell him it's just the fever, then he goes back to sleep. I woke up to a complete disaster with Kevin angrily asking WTF I did last night when his mom called. Clearly she was livid and mortified cause Kevin said I just traumatized her by having her think we were having S** when she called. I told him what I did and insisted it was just out of frustration, but he said I shouldn't have done that and embarrassed him, and made his mom uncomfortable. I said she was calling at 2 a.m. He said still, I acted childishly and potentially harmed his relationship with her. I told him to just tell her I was behind this and he said, oh, don't worry about it, I will, then demanded I apologize to her immediately, but her shaming texts made me refuse. I might have went about this the wrong way, but I was just frustrated, that's all.